Hey guys, this is the fifth practice video, and today we want to focus on open jamming ranges and how they change when we have a bounty in consideration. And when we want to study this kind of spot, we want to compare the open jamming Nash ranges in a tournament which has no KOs compared to the spot in a tournament where we have KOs, and this we want to deviate a bit more into we have a small bounty and we have a big bounty, and considering open jamming. And in all the scenarios we are the short stack at the table. I will show you the setup shortly. So what is the setup? The setup is we can only jam, and this is the stack distribution on the table. And what I'm doing is I'm changing the very short stack, in this case the 11 big blind stack, in positions, and look at the case where we have a big bounty, a small bounty, and no bounty involved. And if you are not familiar with the setup in Hodem Resources Calculator, how to set up chaos properly, you have to choose multi-table ICM. Then you go next when you have all the stack sizes and the blinds and antes, and then you actually have to choose more than one table. So you have one table here. This is our table with the stack sizes we did choose. And then I just add some more tables with auto generate. So if you don't know this feature, you don't have to do another table by hand and type in everything. You can just say, okay, add a new table. Then here on the arrows, say, okay, how many players are on this table? 9. Then it takes the average, click OK, and then you have all the stack sizes. I don't use this table now, but this is how you actually set up everything. So what you're actually regarding is a multi-table tournament with different tables, and you want to study GPV spots. Well, if you want to study GPV spots, then ICM should not play a role. So your regular prize pool distribution should be on first place. Then, of course, you have no ICM. From the ICM video, you should have learned that the probability of finishing in first place is directly connected to your chip stack, and if every other place pays nothing, well then your chips are actually all the time connected directly to the first place price, and this is the case where you don't have any ICM. When you have enough players, then ICM is neglectable, and now we can set up the bounties. And here's the first fallacy: you have to choose the bounties that way that they are actually not bigger than your regular prize pool. So if you're clicking next in Hodem Resources Calculator, you can now set up the bounties, and here you choose progressive, and now we can enter in the bounties, and my setup will always look like this. So I'm giving the player here bit over start bounty. I am regarding a $100 PKO, so 50 in regular prize pool, 50 in the bounty prize pool. We are somewhere inside of the tournament, not ITM, and this is my setup. So the first player has a bit more than a start bounty. This player should have a bit more than a start bounty. Those two also. Then I say, okay, this one has 50, this one has 100, this one has 100. The big stack should have a bit more. And then I'm changing the bounty of the short stack. So if I want to know, okay, when I'm having a very small bounty, then I'm setting in $50 as the bounty. It takes always half of the bounty out. If I want to study the case where I have a big bounty, then I will type in $125 as a bounty. So we will actually match the biggest bounty on the table. And when you add everything together and multiply this by the number of tables you got. So in this case, we have 5 tables. And yeah, unfortunately, it's not saving this, but this was around about $800. And multiplied by 5, this will be $4,000. and make sure that your regular prize pool is bigger than your total bounties combined. So what is HRC doing? HRC is taking the bounties which you type in on your table. So let's say everyone had $100, then we will have 100 times 9, so $900 on this table in bounties. And this value, those $900, HRC takes and puts them exactly on the other table. So every other table which you put in has also now $900 in total value of bounties. And you can see if I would have chosen $900, then multiply this by 5, then we will actually have still more in the regular prize pool than in the bounty prize pool. But if I would have set in $200 for every player, then we would have $1,800 on this table. Now HRC again takes $1,800 and puts them again on all the other 4 tables. So we will have $1,800 times 5, which is $9,000, and this would be bigger than the regular prize pool. And of course, this has a very huge influence on the ranges if the bounty prize pool is bigger compared to the regular prize pool. And make sure that you set up the numbers right. So always look in the end when you're typing in or have typed in all the bounties, make sure double check that your regular prize pool is not smaller. Okay, so this is the general setup. We will have a short stack. We change the bounty of the short stack, and then we will look at the result. And I show you the results, and we will talk about a bit about the general effects. So in this case, we are sitting at MP. We are the 11K player. And this is the chippy V case. So we don't regard any bounties. First of all, we want to know, okay, what we can jam when we are regarding Nash. I'm always regarding Nash ranges here in this whole studying, because when I take in exploits, this is very much dependent on the average buy-in you are playing. So in $55 tournaments, people are playing different compared to $11 tournaments, and compared to one case, people are playing different there. So of course you want later on, if you're going deeper into studying, change the overcalling or the overjamming ranges depending on your population. So for example, in the shorter stakes or the lower stakes, people might be a bit too tight, people might be a bit more random, and in the very high stakes, most of the players are calling near Nash or good Nash ranges. So on high stakes, our calculated results are a bit more accurate compared to low stakes, I would say, but it's always good to look at the optimal decision, and then you can always deviate and think about if you have a situation in game, how much you want to differ from the optimal decision. Okay, so this is the spot where we are short in MP, and when we are short in MP, we can jam a range which looks like this. So all the ace x suited combos down to ace 8 offsuit, king 10 offsuit, let's take this in, and yeah, some of the suited connectors are at least marginal. So now we are looking at the spot where we have a small bounty. In this case, we have $50 bounty in MP. And when we are comparing the ranges, we can still see, okay, the ace-x combos are actually not so bad. We can also see that when we are looking at the suited connector, so look right here when I'm changing the range, okay, this looks pretty devastating. So even when we have a small bounty compared to the average on the table, the suited connectors are actually getting worse and worse. And now let's look at the suited king, queen, and jack x combos. Look at this again. Okay, we see here we have to be also tighter. So we are losing a V in those suited king and queen and jack x combos. All the suited connectors are getting worse and worse, and our ace-x combos are staying essentially the same. So what we can first take away from our studying for the MP position is, compared to Nash, we have to jam tighter. Here we are jamming 18.3%, and in the case where we are having no bounties, we are jamming 23.6%, so we have to be tighter. Now we are comparing this to the case where we have a bigger bounty, and you will wonder how it changes. We can actually jam more when we have a bigger bounty. You will see in the other positions that this is actually a very consistent outcome, and I will explain why is this so. So let's compare the two ranges of MP has a big bounty, or we have a big bounty and are rather short with 11 big blinds, and MP has a small bounty and we are also having the same stack. Now let's look at the exact combos. So in this case we have, like, maybe simplified as any pair and King 9 suited and King Jack offsuit and all the Ace X combos. And what you can see is, oh, our King X combos are getting better. Our pairs are getting worse, and we can add more Ace X combos and even King 10 offsuit. Let's go back again to the short bounty scenario. King 10 offsuit is not good, A7 offsuit is not good, and the pairs are actually better in the case where we have a shorter bounty. So why is this so? Let us look at the likelihood that we are getting in three-way. So for example, we are jamming here and the button should 3-bet jam also. He has the big stack. And then the players behind the button, which is jamming in 13.8% of all times, are calling in 8 and 7.8% of all times. Now when we have the big bounty, the button is jamming 33.2% of all times, and the blinds are also calling way more often compared to the case where we have a short bounty. So in this case we had 8.3 and 7.8%, I think, yeah, 8.3 and 7.8. And here in this case, button is jamming wider, SB is calling wider, big blind is calling wider. And because we are getting multi-way, our equity of our pairs, sorry, this one, our equity of our small pairs are actually dropping. So let's focus on the deuces. When we have a short bounty, deuces are actually pretty marginal, so minus 0.03, and threes are actually plus EV. And in the case where we have a big bounty, threes and deuces are minus EV, because those combinations, multi-way, have worse equity. So what we can take away in general is now, first of all, again, we have to be tighter overall in our jamming ranges compared to the case where it's just a regular MTG without bounties. With bounties, when we have a small bounty, we will actually be able to jam more pairs, but less King X and Ace X combos, because the calling ranges of our opponents are rather tight. When we have a big bounty, then we can actually jam more Ace X and King X heavy, and we actually have to fold the bottom pairs, because we are getting multi-way in so often that the equity of those combinations are dropping. Also, general information, these suited connectors, which you actually tend to jam sometimes, are getting crushed in the bounty tournament. So don't jam 9-8 suited, don't jam 10-9 suited in general out of MP. Meanwhile, in the Chippy V case, you can jam this very profitably. You're printing 0.23 big blinds, so you're printing 23 big blinds on 100, which is pretty huge. And in the bounty case, small bounty, 10-9 suited is actually break-even jam. With the big bounty, you're getting crushed. You're losing 13 big blinds on 100. So you see, okay, those combinations are super horrible and you have to be way tighter in this. Now let's come to another position, and this position will be the button. Now we are sitting at the button with our short stack, and again, this is the range which we can jam in Chippy V. So in Chippy V, let's simplify this range. We can jam any pair, we can jam any suited king X, we jam down to king 6 offsuit, and we're jamming a bunch of suited one gappers. Now again, the case where we have a very short bounty, so we have a small bounty compared to the table, then we are jamming again less, 36%, compared to the case where we have no bounty involved. And we can again see those suited one gappers are super horrible jams. Our suited king X and ace X combos are actually pretty good. King 6 offsuit is now bit minus EV. It was 0.00 in the chip EV case, I think, and now it's slightly minus EV. Right here it's 0.00. And so the ace X and king X range doesn't really change. This is super horrible, and the EV of those combinations is actually dropping off also. So you can see, okay, here we have queen 5 suited, queen 6 suited, we have 10-7 suited, and here this is everything slightly minus EV, so queen 7 suited is actually plus. And now let's compare this to the case where we have the big bounty on the button. And again, you can see consistently, okay, we can jam more when we have a big bounty. And again, this is because players have to call us wider when we have a bigger bounty. So the small blind in this case is 3-bet jamming 45.7%. When we have a small bounty, then the small blind is only jamming in 29.7% of all times. And when we are again looking at the pairs which we are jamming from the button, here our AV of the deuces is 0.05 and of the threes is 0.26. When we are comparing this to the case where we have a shorter, smaller bounty, the AV of deuces and threes is way higher. And again, this is due to the fact that in this case, where we have the bigger bounty, the small blind is jamming wider and the big blind is calling wider off here, 55.7%. In this case, big blind is only calling in 1/3 of the time. So we are getting way more often multi-way, and the V of our bottom pairs is shrinking more and more. Can we get another information? Yes, we can. So we are looking at the closest high card suited combos and also at the connected combos. So in the case where we have a short bounty, a small bounty, we should actually not jam 2 queen X heavy, and we can actually jam 8-7 suited, 9-8 suited. When we have the bigger bounty, then we actually should fold also those good suited or better suited connectors, and we can jam wider with our high card suited range. So another general takedown on this spot where we are rather short and consider open jamming is you should jam more high cut heavy and suited, and you should just fold your suited connectors. And this is again due to the fact that you will getting in more often multi-way. And why is multi-way not so good for us? Well, of course, 8-7 suited can make flushes, it can make straights, it can make two pairs and so on, but often we are not making any pair. And if we are making a pair, there will be overcards to the board, and two other ranges which are playing against us can make higher pairs. So high card value or high pair value is pretty important in those in-getting spots when you are facing wide ranges. Now let us analyze the under the gun spot as the last spot, and first of all again we are looking at our chip EV decision without bounty. So this would be our Nash jamming range without bounties for 11 big blinds under the gun. Now when we have a small bounty, then we can actually see, okay, we have to be again tighter. So we are jamming 11.8%. And in the case where we are regarding the chip EV, we can jam 15.5%. Our bottom pairs are actually okay. And in the ace-10 offsuit and in the suited, some gapper, but with high card value hands, we can actually jam the 9x combos. So if we are looking now in the case where we have the small bounty, we cannot jam any more than 9x combos. Ace-10 offsuit is not so good, and the value of our pairs is actually dropping pretty rapidly. So if you are looking at pocket sixes, this is 0.08 in this case, and if you are looking at pocket sixes here, okay, this is way better. By the way, I'm coming in the end of the video to the difference in those numbers. So let me just finish the under the gun spot here. Now we want to compare our result of the small bounty again to the big bounty, and I want you to look at those combinations: ace-8, king-queen, ace-10, the pairs, and the suited aces. So what you can actually see is again, okay, our ace-x combos are increasing. Our queen 10, jack 10, and pairs are getting even worse. So if you are looking at pocket threes, minus 0.3 deuce. If you are looking here, minus 0.08. So again, this is due to the fact that if you are looking at the times how often you're actually getting rejammed, you have your 6-7, 6-9, 8-3, 11-2s, and always a good spot to look at is the big blind. How wide should the big blind call you off? And in this case, okay, the big blind is calling off 45% of all times, and all the rejamming percentages are also getting wider. And again, we are getting multi-way more often, especially for the late positions, so for the button jamming, and you get 10% and 9% probability when the button jams that you are getting three-way. Meanwhile, in this case, button jams way less and you get only 4%, 4.7% in both cases that you are getting three-way. So your EV of your bottom pairs again is pretty horrible, and the EV of your ace-x combos, because you're making top pairs which are very valuable in a multi-way spot, is growing. So we have this general effect. I want to sum up here. Your suited connectors are horrible when you have a big bounty. Look at 10-9 suited, minus 0.3. Look at 10-9 suited here, minus 0.006 when we have the smaller bounty. And in the GPU case, we can actually jam 10-9 suited under the gun. So this is the first thing which you should definitely take away. Be tight in your suited connectors, your suited one gappers. Be tight in your jack highs. Be tighter in your queen highs when you are regarding bounties, and especially when you have a bigger bounties. And another thing, be looser when you have ace-x combinations with a bigger bounty compared to the case where you have the smaller bounty. Your ace-x combos will be printing a lot, and also all your combinations which are plus EV are printing, of course, more because your opponent's ranges are getting wider and wider. Third thing, be tighter in your bottom pair combinations. So especially those threes and deuces, this is a very consistent result when you are doing all the simulations. Threes and deuces are just not good out of nearly any position. From the button you can jam them, but they are not printing much. And from every other position, those two combinations, when you're regarding bounties, and especially when you're regarding bigger bounties, those two combinations of cards are actually not very good. Now the last side note here, how to compare the numbers. So in the Chippy V case, you got big blinds. So this is all the time in big blinds. When you're doing the PKO calculation, you're choosing, you might remember, you're choosing the multi-table ICM case. And this is an exclamation marks because you don't actually have to really choose an ICM case. You can put everything on first place and then it's a GBV case. And when you're now looking at the numbers which HRC is giving you, those numbers are not big blinds. Those numbers are the table equity. So what is the table equity? Usually when you're looking at ICM spots in Hodem Resources Calculator, the numbers which you are getting are the change on your total price pool percent share. Now, if you have more than one table, HRC is doing it the following way. They are saying, okay, every table has a certain share on the regular price pool. And they say, okay, we are only looking at the table equity, so the change in equity of all stacks only regarding the table. And if you're hovering over here, you can see, okay, 100% table equity pre is 34.21% of the regular price pool. Now, if you want to know how many dollars your combination is actually printing, you're taking this value, so 34.21%. Let's take this shortly here. So we have 34.21%. Our regular price pool was $5,000. And with aces in this example, our stack value increases by 2.33%. So we multiply this by 2.33%. And then we see, okay, and with aces in this case, we are printing $39.85. And this is a new way of displaying EVs. You're not getting different ranges, so the ranges are totally the same, but the shown number, so the plus something, is now different compared to the calculation before the update. So be careful when you're comparing cheap EV spots without chaos to cheap EV spots with chaos. Here the numbers are always displayed directly or indirectly in dollars, and in the cheap EV case, they're always displayed in big blinds. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Good luck at the tables, guys. See you in the next video, and bye bye.